أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today's lesson, we're going to cover the articulation points for 3 letters. Again, if you remember, these are the tip of the tongue letters. طرف اللسان, the tip of the tongue. And we covered before this 2 sets. And this is the third set of letters we are covering. So this is the third articulation point for the طرف اللسان letters. Remember, طرف اللسان has 5 articulation points from which 10 letters emerge, from which 10 letters are articulated. So we did 2 sets last 2 weeks, and today's lesson is going to be on the next set of 3 letters. The next set of 3 letters are the letters Wa, Dal, and Tha. 3 letters, Wa, Dal, and Tha. These 3 letters are from the tip of the tongue, and the tip of the tongue touches the edge of the top teeth. Okay, so how does the sound come? Where does it originate from? It originates when the tip of the tongue rubs against, or it is touching in contact with the edge of the top 2 front incisor teeth. A better way to understand is it? Stick your tongue out, just the tip of your tongue, not the whole tongue. Stick your tongue out between your upper and lower teeth, but try to rub the tip of the tongue against the edge of the top teeth. Now, if you look at the picture here, make this clear for you. You will see the tip of the tongue here. I'm going to highlight it for you. Okay, you can see this is your central teeth, the top central teeth and the lower incisors. These are called incisors, your central incisors. We have talked about the different placement of the teeth in our previous classes. So you know when I talk about incisors, when I talk about central incisors, what I'm talking about. So these are your biting teeth, right? So this top biting teeth, you stick your tongue out. You stick your tongue out. So there's a portion of your tongue that sticks out, but you rub this portion of your tongue against the top incisors, okay, to get the sound of the letter Wa, the letter Dal, and the letter Tha. Okay, now let's look at the letter. Okay, let's look at what else they have to say. Care should be taken to make sure the top of the tip is really colliding or separating, depending whether there is no vowel or a vowel. Whether these letters have a vowel. Vowel means what? Vowel means whether they have a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. What should it be that we have to pay attention to? We have to make sure that the top of the tip is against the tooth. Okay, it is touching the tooth, the top tooth. Okay, so we have to make sure that is what you're doing. So it should not touch the plate of the teeth, but it should only touch the edge. The edge of the tongue should touch, the tip of the tongue should touch, and a part of the tip of the tongue should be out of your mouth. Not out of your mouth, should be protruding a little bit out. But it should touch the edge of the top incisors. Okay, so the first one we are going to see is the letter Wa. Okay, now this letter is very hard for people to pronounce because a common mistake we do in this letter is we make it sound like Vod. Okay, but this is not Vod. Okay, this is the letter Wa. Wa. Okay, it has a different sound from the sound of Vod. What do we see in this letter? We know that the letter of Vod, let's look at it over here. Let me see if I can get the other one there. Okay. The letter Vod, Vo has the back of the tongue raised, because if you remember, Vo is a letter of isti'ala or tafkhim. So what happens in Vo? The back of the tongue is raised up. The back of the tongue is raised up, giving it a heavy sound. And also, if you remember, Vo is a letter where the back, not just the back of the tongue, even the middle of the tongue is raised up in such a way it comes close to the roof of the mouth. It is raised up close to the roof of the mouth, leaving very minimal space between the surface of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. Okay, that gives this quality of heaviness, a much more greater degree of heaviness. So Dod is not a letter which is just heavy. It's not just a heavy letter, it's a very heavy letter. Okay, so what's the first thing about Dod we will write? Let me just first write down the letter Dod here, and we know it is an istiala letter. Istiala letter. Start tafkhim, right? Tafkhim letter. Okay, and we know in Dod,
you're saying this is
tafkhim letter. Keep your questions to the end, sisters. If you have a question, please write them down. I'll answer them after the recording is done. The second thing you note is that in Wa there is running of sound. So there is no place where the sound is stopped. Okay, the sound is running. The sound is running in Dod. Okay, and Do has no air. Okay, keep in mind Do has no air. So if you make hums on Wa, you're not doing it right. Okay, there is no air in the sound of Wa. Okay, this is very important, and it's a very common mistake we make is we add air when we pronounce the letter Wa. Okay, okay. Now let's look at on the next two letters, Dal and the letter Tha. Okay, the letter Dal and the letter Tha. What's the obvious difference between Wa and these two letters is the back of the tongue is not raised. The back of the tongue is lowered. Okay, and since the back of the tongue is lowered, is the letter of istifal. Istifal means what? Tarqiq, right? Istifal means tarqiq. And the sound of these letters is thin sound. Istifal, tarqiq means you are adding a thinness to the sound. So when you say dal, you don't say wall, you don't say for, you say dal. Okay, and sa, you don't make the sound thick. No thickening of sound. Okay, in dal, let's take first dal. Okay, because there's a difference between dal and sa. So dal is istifal or tarqiq, and in dal there is, what is happening in dal? There's running of sound. Okay, running of sound. Okay, and then the third is there is no air accompanying the sound. There is no hums in dal. Remember, the tip of the tongue is raised up in dal. The tip of the tongue is raised up and touches the edge of the top teeth, right? The tip of the tongue comes out and touches the edge of the top teeth. So there is no blockage of the sound, and there is no air in dal, and you have the letter dal here. So al. Don't let air come out because there's no air in dal. There's only sound that is running. Al. Ad, ad. There's no air. It's only the sound. In tha, let's put tha here. Tha is the one with the 3 dots in it. And in tha too, remember the tha has the same makhraj as makhraj as dal. Here again the tongue is lowered. When the tongue is lowered, is not raised up, it becomes a letter of istifal. Istifal is also called tarqiq letter. And the second thing in tha is there is running of sound. Running of sound. Because you remember the edge of the tongue is touching the top edge of the tip of the tongue is touching the top edge of the top teeth. So there is room for the sound to run. Then the third is the third thing about tha is, which is unique to tha, is it has air that accompanies the sound. There's air running. There's running of air. So in tha, when I say the sound of tha, I also can feel the sound of air. I can also feel the gush of air, not the sound of air. I can feel the air gushing out with the letter tha. So how can I figure out how the sounds are of, or how can I figure out the characters of these letters? By articulating, the point of articulation for all these 3 letters. So now I have to practice them. And the technique is as I said, Hamza before the letter, give the letter a sukoon and try to say as, 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 as. So this sound is not as, okay? Seen has a sa sound. This has the sound of a th, like in the word thus, like in the word this, like in the word thick, thick, thin. So thick, okay, let's do the examples for these are like, make it more easier. Thick, thin. The th sound in thick, the th sound in thin is the sound you need to make for the letter th. Okay. In dal, now let's look at dal. Dal is because the tip of the tongue is out a little bit, touching the edge. It doesn't sound like that. Okay, make sure it is the dal sound. So again, I put a hamza before the dal. I put a sukoon on the dal and say az, az. Let the sound run. Don't stop the sound. Az, 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 az. So it's more like az. Okay, this is the closest I can get in English. Okay, how about the letter wa? Let's look at wa. Okay, in wa, again, tip of the tongue touching the upper edge of the top central incisors, and I get this back of the tongue raised up and I say ow, ow, ow. If you notice, my sound feels like it is stuffed, a stuffed sound. It's not a sound it is heavy and it's also stuffed. Why? Because the back of my tongue and a part of my tongue is raised up close to the roof of the mouth. Okay, occluding the sound. So, ow, 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 ow. Okay, and here again, there's no air, it's just the sound running. So if the difference is in ow, you will notice a light kind of reverberation. Reverberation matlab, like when you start an engine, right? How the engine starts when it doesn't start immediately. When you put the key in your car and try to start the car, how does the engine start? That's the sound. That's a similar sound when it comes to ow, 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 ow. This is the sound of war. So That's our lesson for today, inshallah. Okay, let's see if I've covered everything. Okay, okay, yeah. Okay, I think I covered everything. Alhamdulillah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. آمين.